Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco knives, Canis or Canis, I'm not quite sure which. But anyways, first off, in the name of full disclosure, I want to thank my Patreon patrons. They make it possible for me to see a knife like this, realize, oh, it's been out for a while, I should check one of those guys out, and then just buy it. I think I got this guy at Knife Joy. Thanks, Knife Joy. But nonetheless, they make it possible for me to just look at a random knife and go, yeah, I should buy one of those, and do it without a second thought. So thank you very much, Patreon patrons, for supporting the channel. It really does mean the world to me. Next thing, size comparison. Let's throw this guy down next to the Ontario Rat number 2, next to the Spyderco Delica, and what we see here is this isn't a small knife. This is absolutely a full-size piece. Here it is against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, or PM2, and what we see here is that in terms of sharpened blade length, this guy is exceeding the PM2 in a pretty reasonable way. And then finally, against a knife that is very similar in spirit, if not in size, and that is the Spyderco Yo Jumbo, which just arrived on my table yesterday, which is a much bigger knife, but is also aimed squarely at the self-defense market. And one thing that's worth noting, by the way, is that the Yo Jumbo only, it has an edge in terms of length, but it's only about half an inch. And so the amount of extra blade that you're getting out of these guys, they're very similar in a lot of ways. And so there is that. Next thing, who is the designer of this guy? This is a knife designed by Kelly McCann. And Kelly McCann, I'm quoting directly from Spyderco's website, because I actually hadn't heard of this person before, is one of the world's leading experts in counterterrorism, anti-terrorism, close combat, and all aspects of security. His decades of real-world operational experience are clearly reflected in the Canis, a no-nonsense folding knife optimized for personal protection. So, as many of you may be thinking, well, Nick, you're not a knife combat kind of person. What the heck are you doing reviewing this? Well, what I'm doing is missing the point entirely. Seriously, I am, and I know that, and I'm going to be hearing it in the comments, no doubt, but I want to be clear about this. I'm not really going to be commenting on this as a self-defense tool. I am not a person who is qualified to evaluate that kind of thing, and honestly, I'm not a proponent of knife fighting for anybody without years and years of training. Carrying a knife for self-defense just because it's a really, you need to get training, or you're just arming your attackers. But anyways, my question, the reason I'm looking at this knife, and the question that I'm going to be asking during this review is this a good knife to have in your pocket for every other moment of your life? Because I hope for all of your sakes that you will have way more cause for opening boxes or envelopes and going through your everyday life than you ever will for self-defense. So pardon my missing the point here, so to speak. Pardon my not discussing the thing that this is mostly designed for, which is the self-defense context, but I'll argue that I'm actually making a different, related, and also useful point, because chances are most of your life you're going to be using it as an everyday tool, and if something else comes up, well, apparently it's going to be ready for that too. So anyways, that's how I'm going to be talking about this as an everyday carry pocket knife, and let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife here. So the good side, to start with, the blade profile on this guy is very unique. It has what's called a lightning swedge, meaning it both is thinning the blade a little bit in the central area, but it also is making the blade lighter, generally speaking. This contributes to a balance that is quite good. It has a relatively big and beefy blade up here with a relatively low saber grind, although it is a hollow grind, and we'll talk about that later on. But nonetheless, that little swedge actually adds a little bit of something to it. It gives it sort of a sci-fi feel, whereas I think otherwise it might be a little bit on the vanilla side, so it's good functionally and it's good aesthetically. Can't argue with that. Well, at least it's interesting aesthetically. Whether it's good or not, people are going to differ on. But still, here you go. Next thing, 4-way clip. Guy can mount right side, left side, up, tip up or tip down. Yeah, those are the words. Anyways, that means that this is a very lefty-friendly knife, given that the compression lock itself is generally pretty lefty-friendly too. That is a beautiful thing. Next thing, running on phosphor bronze washers. Can't argue with that. No argument there. The action on this is quite good as a result. And actually, I should just comment on that real quick. This is using the Spyderco compression locking mechanism, and that is a mechanism that basically acts a lot like a liner lock, except the liner is on the top. You can get a better sense of how this works in my this assembly video, but you'll see this little part kind of goes right over into here, and then wedges the blade open between this pin right here and the tang of the blade. And so, as a result, the knife is very securely locked when open, but it also has the advantage of a very nice, easy shutting action. All you need to do is press this guy back, and it will fall shut. That's a beautiful thing, right? And so the compression lock is great and gives this guy a very nice action with a good detent for popping this guy open with your thumb, with your fingers, or even for slowly opening it if you prefer. All of those things work very, very well. Next thing, this guy has some serious jimping on it. This area here has given a lot of texture. This is going to very easily stay in your hand. And overall, the aesthetic of it, the shape, I'm sorry, not just the aesthetic of it, but the feeling of it, lends this a very nice shape in the hand. This leads to just awesome ergonomics. This is a knife that feels really great in the hand. And it's not just good in the sense of it's very smooth in the hand, but it's locked in there. This is a knife that could absolutely spend some time with you at the Vaseline factory, and it's not going anywhere. And little details like this little finger cutout here and here is just making that all the better, and it's better in both hands, it's good in both hands, that is. And so ergonomically speaking, this is actually really good. Like, I looked at it initially as like, oh, that's going to be interesting, but no. Ergonomically, this is surprisingly excellent. I'm a big, big fan of that, even in my relatively small hands. And so the thumb ramp combined, and by the way, this does feature a thumb ramp there, and it's also quite nice, by the way, in reverse grip, which I think is how it's often intended to be used in a knife self-defense situation, but it works very, very well in either of those grips, and the ergonomics of it for just a daily tool for cutting things are very, very good. And so to me, all of that is the good, is that it's got awesome ergonomics, a good compression lock, which lends it a very nice action. It's running on phosphor bronze washers. It's got a very smooth action there as a result. It's got a 4-way clip, making it pretty ambi-friendly, and it is a very unique blade profile. The great side, though, is this blade. So, generally speaking, low saber grounds, the grinds that is, where there's not a whole lot of grind on the blade, means okay cutting performance. This is a hollow grind, though. I'll see if I can show this off, but the tip of this goes amazingly thin. This cuts like crazy. This knife devours cardboard like nobody's business. This is a knife that does really, really good work. And given that there are no thumb studs or anything like that to hang up on, with the spider hole opening mechanism instead, this is good. This is a really good cutting tool. The steel on it is S30V, which is a steel that will, absolutely, it's good to go for everyday carry, that is. Thin edge. The Warney profile, the Warncliffe style straight edge blade, is really good because it allows you to make kind of slicing utility cuts against things, which is very helpful. It's got a little tiny bit of a forward cant to it, where it kind of it leans in this way a little bit, kind of low-key kukri style. But it's a very, very good utility blade. Just carrying this guy around in my daily life, it was like, damn, this is a good blade for cutting things. And so to me, what's great about this knife is even though it may be designed for self-defense, they've come up with a blade here that is compelling for just everyday carry, right? And so that is great to me. It is a great utility blade for your everyday life. On the bad side, one thing that bugs some people, doesn't bug me, is that this is the carbon fiber G10 composite. In fact, you can see in this little kind of cutout area where the carbon fiber stops and where the G10 begins. I mean, fine by me. I don't really care, but that bugs some people. Next thing, $192. That's not super cheap, but you know what? It's well made. I can't really get too bad out of shape, but it's still going to put it out of the price range for a number of people. And then finally, on the bad side, Warncliffe style blades can be impractical for some cutting tasks, specifically the ones where you would want a little bit of belly. So for instance, this is not going to be an ideal knife for food prep. I mean, you can do dragging cuts against a cutting board and that'll work, but if you're trying to cut down onto something, for instance, let's pretend that this here is a cutting board. Really, only the tip of the knife is going to be able to touch, as opposed to when you've got a knife with a belly, like, for instance, this rat, where you can do a little bit more of a rocking motion. That's not going to be the case here. This primarily works well for draw cuts. So keep in mind that the Warncliffe utility blade style isn't going to work well for some kinds of everyday cutting, but that's the problem with any of these Warncliffes. And honestly, all of that is the bad. Right? The Warnies are a little impractical. The price is a little up there, but it's not that bad, honestly. And then the G10 composite thing bugs some people, but doesn't bug me. There is nothing ugly here, so my final conclusion, as I've been doing this, is just like, why do I love this knife? Look, this is a knife that is high-speed, low-drag, tactical in every meaningful way. The knife was designed by an actual freaking special ops operator type. And it is a knife that is designed for the very last thing that I consider when evaluating a pocket knife. As I said, I view my knives as tools for everyday life rather than tools for self-defense. That's just not fundamentally how I look at the world. And so as a result, this is a knife that I really expected to be like, okay, I guess if you want to kill people, it's fine. But this turned out to be a knife that I like like a lot. This is, in fact, a knife that I love. This may be one of my favorite releases from Spyderco this year. Actually, it's certainly one of my favorites. It might be my favorite. Because it's relatively unique in its blade shape here. It's ambidextrous. It's got great jimping, great action, a good lock, awesome ergonomics, an amazing blade that just cuts like crazy, even in everyday carry tasks. It's a little pricey, and the blade shape isn't ideal for some tasks, but mostly, this is just a great knife. It may be designed for combat, but by God, it's good for daily life too. It is a knife that is an excellent choice for daily carry in the pocket. If this kind of a utility blade shape profile works well for you, you will love this knife. This will be an absolutely beautiful piece. It's an excellent cutting tool, and a knife that, honestly, if somebody said to me, Nick, sorry, this is the only knife you can carry from now on, I'd be like, okay, sure, that'll work. I can do with that. I can live with this. Is it my aesthetic style? Not necessarily, strictly speaking. But at the same time, it is really good. And in fact, this is a gem, and it is a shocking gem to me. It is a knife that will appeal, I suspect, and again, I'm not a person to evaluate this. This was a knife that will appeal to those who are not living terribly peaceful lives, but it will equally serve those at peace, right? And it is a nice reminder that apparently you can indeed have both. So well done, Kelly McCann. Holy crap, if this is your knife design debut, good job. And well done, Spyderco. And so I'm very, very impressed with this guy. It is 100% a gem, and it is a really, really surprisingly good piece. And if you're asking yourself, can this work in my collection? The answer is, yeah, dog. Is Canis dog? No? Okay. Anyways, there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.